So if you own a business, chances are you have business expenses to operate that business. And I think it's always a good idea to analyze those expenses from time to time, just to make sure that the expenses you're paying are for things you're actually using, and to make sure that you're not overpaying or paying for things that aren't really serving your company. Now, obviously the most important ones would be the bigger expenses. And for a lot of businesses, that's going to be things like rent, like labor, like materials, maybe sometimes utilities. It will depend a lot depending on the nature of the business, but those would be some of the more common high expenses that make up a large portion of the spending for a business. And so with those large expenses, of course, it's great to look at those and determine if you're overspending, where you can cut those costs, maybe where you can get more value for what you're paying. Obviously, you want your business to be profitable. So if you're overpaying for those larger expenses, it's going to be really difficult for your business to be profitable. Now, aside from the big expenses, businesses are going to have small expenses as well. Now, that might be things like utilities in some cases. That might be interest rates for debt that they have. That could be insurance. Sometimes insurance is a big expense. And that could even be just subscriptions that the business has. Maybe subscribe to certain newsletters or software or different programs or things like that. So the big expenses are obviously more important to look at and make sure you're not overspending, but the small ones are still really important too. So yes, with the small ones, it doesn't impact your business as much. If you can reduce your utilities from $400 a month to $300 a month, or you can cancel some subscriptions that you don't use anymore and save yourself, $40 a month or $150 a month or something like that. Sure, that's not a huge game changer in the big picture for most businesses, but it still is really important. And the reason that I think it's really important to even be mindful of these small expenses and look for ways to reduce them or cut them if you're not using them is because it's about a mindset. It's about developing a mindset in how you operate your business. And it's about developing good habits. If you're the type of person or the type of business that doesn't really pay attention to those things, you end up paying for subscriptions that you haven't used in many years, you're overpaying for big things like rent, it creates a bad habit and it becomes an inefficiently operated business from a financial perspective. So with those small expenses like the utilities, like the interest on debt, it's still good to step back and analyze those and figure out where you can cut them or where you can reduce them. For example, maybe your business is carrying a bit of debt on a credit card. Credit cards are typically like 25% interest. So, something like that, even if it's, just $10,000 on a credit card, can save yourself some money by switching that debt over to a line of credit. So yes, that's probably not going to be a game changer for more businesses, but it's developing that mindset, developing that good habit of making sure you're not overspending and wasting money. That money that's going to subscriptions that you don't use anymore, that's going to pay the bank for extra interest on a credit card debt instead of line of credit debt, or going to utilities because whatever you're leaving your air conditioner on overnight when you really don't need it. Those expenses, that money going to those expenses could be better used elsewhere, right? It's a poor allocation of resources. And beyond expenses, there can be poor allocation of resources as well with assets. If you have physical assets that your business owns, that your business doesn't even use anymore, especially if they're of significant value, rather than sitting there doing nothing, sometimes it might make more sense to actually sell them. And that's what I recommend for individuals as well. I just care a lot about good allocation of resources. And I think developing that mindset of having a good allocation of resources, whether that's assets or how you're spending, is really important to operating a business and operating it efficiently from a financial perspective. So hopefully this video provided some value. If so, please click like. If you have any questions on these topics of business startup or business management, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section or check out my other videos on YouTube where I have over 120 covering those topics. And if you're looking for a business management consultant to help you get started with your business or improve your business, feel free to reach out. I offer a free 1-hour consultation that can be booked on my website, and I will leave a link to that in the video description.